Take a look at the sky in this video. Look closely. It looks peaceful, doesn't it? Just a vast, empty blue. But I'm here to tell you that in March 2026, empty is a lie. Empty is just a word we use for things we aren't allowed to see. On Saturday morning, March 1st, the city of Tehran woke up just like any other day. People were heading to the markets, traffic was backing up near Azadi Square, and the most heavily guarded men in the Middle East were sitting down for a meeting in a secure sunroom in the Pasteur district. At exactly 8:10 a.m., 30 distinct high-explosive impacts turned that compound into a crater. No air raid sirens, no radar lock warnings, not a single Iranian S-400 missile left its tube. The global media is calling it a surgical strike. They're talking about bombs and payloads. They're completely missing the terrifying truth. The bombs were the easy part. The part that should keep you awake at night is how the United States knew exactly which chair the Supreme Leader was sitting in a room with no windows, behind 6 feet of reinforced concrete. What happened on Saturday wasn't just a military mission. It was a digital harvest. While the world was looking at the fire, a shape was sitting 70,000 feet above the smoke. A jet that doesn't just hide from radar, it possesses it. I've spent the last 72 hours deconstructing the leaked flight data from Ellsworth Air Force Base and the encrypted sensor logs bouncing around the dark web. What I found isn't just a new plane, it's the death of human privacy. This is the forensic deconstruction of the B-21 Raider. We're going to look at a 30-year bloodline of secret budgets, digital plagues, and a sensor so invasive it can track your heartbeat through a roof. Welcome to the end of hiding. To understand the terror of the Raider, we have to go back to the night the illusion of stealth died. March 27, 1999, Yugoslavia. An F-117 Nighthawk, call sign Vega 31, is flying through the night sky. The US military believed this jet was totally invisible, but down on the ground, a Serbian commander named Zoltan Dani had modified a vintage Soviet radar. He lowered the frequency, he waited for the exact moment the F-117 opened its bomb bay doors, increasing its radar cross-section for a fraction of a second. Boom! The invisible jet was blown out of the sky. That wreckage in the Serbian mud sent a shockwave through the Pentagon. They realized that stealth, based purely on shape, flat panels, sharp angles, had an expiration date. So they built the B-21 Spirit.
The B-2 was a miracle of engineering. It was a flying wing designed to bounce radar waves away like a skipped stone on a pond. But it was a fragile miracle. I remember talking to guys who worked the flight line at Whiteman Air Force Base. They called the B-2s hangar queens. If a B-2 stayed in the rain for too long, its stealth skin, the radar-absorbent material, would literally start to peel off. It required specialized, climate-controlled, gold-plated hangars. It cost $2 million a copy to build and $130,000 an hour to fly. It was a Cold War Ferrari that you couldn't take out in a thunderstorm. The military knew they had a problem. They needed a bomber that could survive a 21st century digital war. They didn't just need a plane that was hard to see. They needed a plane that could blind the enemy. For 30 years, the Raider was a whisper in the Mojave Desert, a black budget line item. We saw the blurry photos from the Palmdale rollout in 2022. We saw the first test flights in 2023. And the critics, the same analysts who hated the F-35, called it a mini B-2. They said it was just a cheaper, smaller clone. The B-21 wasn't built to be a cheaper bomber. It was built because the US military realized that kinetic bombs are secondary. In 2026, the real weapon is the logic bomb. And to drop a logic bomb, you need a platform that isn't just invisible to radar, but actively rewrites it. Let's get technical, because if you want to understand how the 8:10 a.m. strike happened, you need to understand the physics of the ghost eye. Most people think stealth is passive. You fly quiet, you fly high, and you hope the radar waves miss you. And that's 1990s thinking. My sources confirm that the B-21 carries a sensor suite classified as a Terahertz synthetic aperture radar, TSAR. This is where the math gets terrifying. Normal air defense radars, the stuff on an S-400 or an F-15, operate in the X-band or S-band. They use gigahertz frequencies. They bounce off metal, water, and earth. But the B-21's belly is lined with active electronically scanned arrays that operate in the terahertz gap, specifically between 0.1 and 10 terahertz.
At this extreme frequency, the physics of how a wave interacts with matter changes completely. Let's look at the wavelength equation. Lambda equals CF. When the frequency f hits the terahertz level, the wavelength lambda is measured in millimeters and even sub-millimeters. At this microscopic scale, the waves don't just bounce off a house, they penetrate non-conductive materials, wood, drywall, even certain types of reinforced concrete. When those raiders were loitering 70,000 feet over Tehran on Saturday morning, completely undetected by the Iranian air defenses, they weren't just looking for a building, they were looking for biology. The ghost eye uses the terahertz pulse to detect minute micro-vibrations of a human chest cavity expanding and contracting. It reads thermal signatures and electromagnetic displacement. The US didn't have a spy on the ground pointing a laser at the Supreme Leader's window. They didn't need one. The B-21 literally painted the entire Pasteur district with a molecular ping. The flight computers stripped away the roofs, stripped away the walls, and displayed the occupants of that building on a screen like they were standing in a glass box. And here is the viral kicker, the part that makes this a global threat. This sensor doesn't just see biology, it sees data. The terahertz array acts as a massive high-altitude vacuum for electromagnetic radiation. It reads the pulses from cell phones. It can clone a localized Wi-Fi network from 12 miles up. While the world was watching the 30 bombs detonate, the B-21 was likely downloading the entire Iranian command and control server through the air without ever plugging into a hardline. It didn't just bomb the city, it stole it. But every weapon of this magnitude comes with a cost, and the cost of the B-21's digital dominance was paid in American blood. 24 hours after the Tehran strike, on March 2nd, the world watched in horror as 3 US F-15E Strike Eagles and a Kuwaiti interceptor were erased from the sky over Al-Jahra. The Pentagon held a press conference. They looked the American public in the eye and called it friendly fire, a tragic mistake by a Kuwaiti surface-to-air missile battery. They blamed human error. They said the operators got jumpy. I've spent days verifying the IFF, Identification Friend or Foe, logs that leaked onto military forums yesterday.
The Kuwaiti battery operators didn't make a mistake. They didn't have a choice. Their computers told them with 100% mathematical certainty that the jets flying toward them were Iranian Su-35s preparing to attack. Why? Because of the logic leak. To blind the Iranian defenses during Operation Epic Fury, the B-21 Raiders didn't just jam the radars. Jamming is loud. It tells the enemy you are there. Instead, the B-21 released a zero-day logic bomb, a highly contagious digital virus designed to inject itself into the S-400 network and rewrite the IFF code. It made the Iranian screens show empty skies. But as any cybersecurity expert will tell you, code doesn't respect borders. The virus didn't stay in Tehran. When the B-21s linked up with the aerial refueling tankers over the Persian Gulf, the logic bomb jumped. It hitched a ride on the encrypted Link 16 network. From the tankers, it spread to the combat air patrols. It infected the F-15s. By the time those Strike Eagles crossed into Kuwaiti airspace, their hardware was lying. The virus had recoded their transponders. They were shouting, "I am an enemy missile, shoot me," to every Allied radar in a 500-mile radius. The F-15 is a 50-year-old legend. It has a 104-0 combat record. It is an absolute titan of air-to-air combat, but it is an analog mind trying to survive in a digital apocalypse. You could be the greatest dogfighter in the world, but you can't outturn a computer virus that turns your own jet into a suicide note. The Kuwaitis fired because the software demanded blood. So why didn't the B-21 crash? If the virus infected the network, why didn't the Kuwaitis shoot down the Raider? Because the B-21 is the only aircraft on Earth built with an open systems architecture capable of running a digital immune system. It's designed to fly through a cyberstorm and update its own antivirus protocols mid-flight. And that brings us to the most terrifying part of this 5,000-word deep dive, the part that affects you sitting at home with your smartphone. The B-21 was never meant to be a solo act. The US Air Force is currently scrambling to pair it with the F-47 NGAD. If the B-21 is the brain, the F-47 is the sword. The Pentagon calls this the family of systems.
I have a different name for it: the Sovereign Grid. In late 2025, during the classified Dark Skies tests, the Air Force flew a B-21 without a pilot. Not a drone piloted from a trailer in Nevada, an autonomous flight managed by a closed-loop neural net. The plane was making its own tactical decisions based on the data it was harvesting. Combine that with the Terahertz Ghost Eye, we are looking at the birth of a global, autonomous network that can loiter over any city, New York, London, Beijing, completely invisible, scanning the biological and digital signatures of millions of people at once. It can decide who is a friend and who is a threat based on an algorithm processing your heartbeat and your search history simultaneously. We used to hide in the dark. We used to hide behind thick walls. We used to think that turning our phones on airplane mode meant we were off the grid. The B-21 just proved that the grid is everywhere. I love military aviation. I've spent my life studying the engineering, the thrusts to weight ratios, the sheer human ingenuity it takes to put a machine like the F-22 or the B-21 into the sky. It is a work of art. But as historians and as citizens of 2026, we have to look at Operation Epic Fury and be brutally honest about what just happened. We didn't just win a tactical victory, we opened Pandora's box. We created a digital plague that killed our own pilots, and we deployed a surveillance tool so absolute that the concept of a private life no longer exists if you step outside your front door. The Air Force is ramping up production. They want 100 of these Raiders on the ramp. That means within a few years, there will always be a ghost in the air, constantly circling, constantly scanning. If you live in a major city and you've noticed your phone dropping calls at exactly 2 a.m., if you've seen a hidden network pop up on your Wi-Fi list with a massive signal strength when there's no router around, you might want to look up. You won't see anything. The sky will look perfectly empty. But the ghost is there, and it already knows exactly who you are. Drop a comment below. I want to know, do you think the B-21 is the ultimate protector of the free world, or did we just build the ultimate tool of a global surveillance state? And if you have any strange network logs or footage of silent shapes over your city, send them to my encrypted link in the bio. Next week, we are diving into the NGAD, the F-47, the jet without a tail. I've got the leaked physics on how it maneuvers using plasma actuators, and it breaks everything we know about aerodynamics. Hit subscribe, stay vigilant, and remember, there's no such thing as an empty sky.